He had 24 hours before the world would fall out from under him. The eviction notice on the door wasn't a warning anymore. It was a final countdown. In his pocket, a crumpled $7 bill was the last remnant of a life that had been systematically dismantled by hardship. He didn't know it yet, but a simple promise, a forgotten act of kindness from 10 years ago, was at that very moment racing across time to deliver a $100,000 miracle directly to his doorstep. This is the story of how the universe keeps perfect records and how a seed of faith, planted in a moment of compassion, can grow into a forest of abundance when you need it most. His name was Arthur, and his life had become a study in quiet desperation. He was a good man, the kind of person who would give you the coat off his back even if a cold wind was blowing. But the world had a way of taking more than just coats. It had taken his job in a factory closure. It had taken his savings through his wife's medical bills, and after she passed, it seemed to have taken his hope as well. Now it was coming for his home. The stakes were not merely financial, they were existential. The small apartment was the last container for his memories, the last place where the scent of his wife's favorite lavender soap still lingered in the air. To lose this place was to lose the final, fragile thread connecting him to the life they had built. As he sat at his worn-out kitchen table, he remembered a different time, a decade earlier. He had been rushing to a job interview, full of a hope that now felt like a foreign country. At the bus station, he saw a young man, a student by the looks of his overflowing backpack, frantically searching his pockets, his face pale with panic. The student was $7 short for a ticket home for a family emergency. Without a second thought, Arthur had pulled out his wallet and given him the money, along with an extra 10 for food. The student, eyes filled with tears, had promised to pay him back. Arthur had just smiled and said, "Consider it an investment in a good person. Go. Be with your family." He never saw the young man again and had long since forgotten the entire encounter. In the present, that memory felt like a ghost, a painful reminder of a man he no longer was. His prayers for a sign, for any kind of relief, had been met with a deafening silence. He felt utterly and completely alone, a forgotten soldier in a war he had already lost. He stared at a pile of junk mail on the counter, a collection of final notices and credit card offers that felt like insults. His first instinct was to sweep the entire pile into the trash can, a final act of surrender. But something, a flicker of an idea, a whisper in the quiet room, made him pause. He felt a strange, illogical compulsion to go through it one last time. What could possibly be in that stack of paper refuse that could alter the crushing trajectory of his life? His fingers, numb from the cold of the unheated apartment, sifted through the envelopes. Bill, final notice. Then he saw it. A thick, cream-colored envelope with the name of a prestigious law firm embossed in the corner. There was no window, no urgent red lettering. It was quiet and official. He assumed it was a mistake, or worse, a legal threat from a creditor he'd forgotten. With a sigh, he tore it open. The paper inside was heavy, the kind of paper that costs more per sheet than he had to his name. It was a letter addressed to him, speaking of the last will and testament of a recently deceased benefactor. His mind reeled. It had to be a scam, a cruel and elaborate joke designed to kick a man who was already down. He felt a surge of anger, then a wave of profound weariness. He read the words again. It mentioned an inheritance, a significant sum held in trust. He felt the cold dread of false hope creep into his heart. "It's the hope that kills you," he thought. The letter didn't name the benefactor, only a client reference number and a polite, almost gentle request to call a specific lawyer at his earliest convenience. He stared at the phone number, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. Every rational part of his brain told him it was a fraud. But the man who had once invested in a stranger at a bus stop still lived somewhere inside him, a tiny pilot light of faith that had refused to be extinguished. With a trembling hand, he picked up the phone and dialed, half expecting a disconnected line or a sales pitch. Could this possibly be real? Or was he dialing the number for his final, most devastating disappointment? A calm, measured voice answered on the second ring. "Law offices of Sterling and Croft. This is Mr. Davies. Arthur explained, his own voice hoarse, why he was calling. He gave the reference number. There was a moment of silence, the gentle tapping of a keyboard. The atmosphere in his small kitchen felt thick enough to suffocate him. He could hear the faint, steady ticking of the clock on the wall, each tick a hammer blow marking the final hours of his life in this home. Then the lawyer spoke again, his tone shifting from professional to something warmer, more personal. Yes, Mr. Harris. We've been trying to reach you. The lawyer, Mr. Davies, began to explain. The benefactor was a tech entrepreneur who had passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind a vast fortune and a very unusual will. The entrepreneur had been a man of humble beginnings who had never forgotten the kindnesses shown to him when he had nothing. He had kept a detailed journal his entire life, and in it, he listed every person who had ever helped him in any meaningful way. His will stipulated that a portion of his estate be divided among them. Arthur listened, stunned into silence. He couldn't recall ever meeting a tech entrepreneur. The sound of the lawyer's steady voice was an anchor in his swirling confusion, a stark and unbelievable contrast to the frantic, chaotic pounding in his own chest. Mr. Davies continued. My client's name was Joseph Crane. The name meant nothing to Arthur. He said as much. He would have been a student, about 10 years ago, the lawyer prompted gently, and then, like a photograph slowly developing in a dark room, the image of the young, frantic student at the bus station flooded Arthur's mind. The backpack, the pale face, the tearful promise to pay him back. He remembered the feeling of the $7 leaving his hand. The lawyer confirmed that the amount designated for him was, in fact, $100,000. Arthur nearly dropped the phone, but Mr. Davies wasn't finished. There's one more thing, he said. Mr. Crane left a specific personal message for a few individuals on the list. You are one of them. It explains why the amount designated for you was so significant. $100,000 was a miracle, but a personal message from a ghost, from a boy he'd met for 5 minutes a decade ago? That was a mystery that felt even more profound, a key that promised to unlock the meaning behind this impossible event. Arthur held his breath, waiting for the final piece of the puzzle. The lawyer cleared his throat and read the words that Joseph Crane, the boy from the bus station, had written for him. To the man who didn't give me a loan, but an investment. I was on my way home to see my dying mother. I was terrified and alone. Your $7 got me home, but it was your words that saved me. You told me it was an investment in a good person. In that moment, you didn't see a charity case. You saw potential. You expressed faith in me when I had none in myself. That faith was the seed capital for everything I ever built. I made a promise to pay you back, but that's impossible. You can't repay faith. You can only pay it forward. This is not a gift. This is the return on your investment. Thank you for believing in me. The line went quiet. Arthur was weeping, silent tears streaming down his face. The $100,000 would save his home, but the message had saved his soul. It was the sign he had been praying for, a divine message delivered not in a booming voice from the heavens, but in the quiet, grateful words of a forgotten stranger. His life was transformed in that instant, but not by the money. The true miracle was the profound, earth-shattering realization that his small, forgotten act of kindness had not been a drop of rain in a desolate ocean. It had been a seed. It had landed in fertile ground. And for 10 years, unseen and unknown to him, it had grown into a mighty tree. This was the true nature of abundance. It wasn't about what was in your bank account, but what was in your heart. It was the understanding that we are all connected, that an act of faith sends a powerful signal, an echo into the universe that never dies. That echo travels through time, through other people's lives, and it waits for the perfect moment to return to you, not as you sent it, but multiplied beyond comprehension. This is a fundamental law of the universe, a divine principle written into the fabric of reality. An act of pure faith, an investment in the goodness of another soul, sends a vibration into the cosmos. That vibration never fades. It only grows, gathering energy and power, waiting for the precise moment when you need it most, to return and remind you that you are seen, you are valued, and that no act of love is ever, ever wasted. If you find mysteries of the divine economy compelling, consider following to receive the urgent message the universe has for you today.